Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn. Really pleased to be here. I'm excited for the next half an hour or so, hopefully to give you guys some smart tips and solutions on closing that very important sale. But before I begin, I've been asked to mention that this course is approved by the NKBA for CEU credits, so that's a bonus. So firstly, let me start by letting you know a little bit about myself. So why should I be here today talking to you? So I started my career 30 years ago and I was designing kitchens for a kitchen retailer called John Lewis. And a funny story to begin with. So I'm on the kitchen showroom and a customer comes into the showroom and they say to me, Simon, I want to buy that kitchen there, but the worktop won't go in my house, the colour's wrong, so can I look at another kitchen? And I'm like, well, of course you can change the worktop or solid surface or whatever for another colour, or you can change the kitchen door. But the thing that I learned very, very quickly is the customers can't visualise. So the big thing about sales, which is so powerful, is about helping customers to visualise, and that's all about demonstration, which we're going to come back onto. So I hope you enjoyed today's course. So the last 30 years I've spent going around kitchen and bathroom showrooms and watching how people do things that are good, bad or indifferent and picking up on the best bits, and today I'm going to share those best bits with you. So we're going to look at today what is selling, my definition of selling. It's very important to understand while we can be good designers, we also need to sell and we need to make sure we increase our conversion rate. What's the process when the customer comes in the showroom? What can we do to maximize sales conversion? And how do we ask customers questions? The best salespeople will ask plenty of questions first and then provide their solution. The worst salespeople provide a solution without asking any questions. And then the very important presentation. How do you present yourself and how do you present your presentation to the customer to maximize sales? And very importantly, how do we close the customer and how do we do that professionally, and what methods can we adopt? When it goes wrong, sometimes it goes wrong for us all. How do we recover the situation and keep the door firmly open for a future conversation? Okay guys, so I'm going to give you a quick tip here. So I was told this tip probably about 20 years ago by a very good salesperson stroke designer in London. And he said, Simon, I'm going to show you how I increase my sales conversion rate. So what I do, I go to the customer's house and I take a photograph of the customer's old kitchen. I come back to the showroom and I print this picture out on my printer and I put the picture in the customer's file of the old kitchen. Customer comes into the showroom and I show the customer their brand new kitchen on the CAD design, on the 2020 design, and they're looking in the corner of their eye at the printed picture of their old kitchen. I say nothing. I make no reference to the old picture, and the customer's looking at both, and the desire for the new kitchen goes up significantly. So that guy increases conversion rate from 6 out of 10 average to 8 out of 10, which doesn't sound a lot, but in a course of a whole year, it made him a heck of a lot more profit. So that's a little tip for you that I can share today. You can try that tip and see whether that works for you. Okay, so firstly, what is the definition of selling? So if you look in the English dictionary, it might be slightly different in North America. It says to give or hand over something in exchange for money. Okay, very technical. The process of helping someone discover something of value. But for me, in layman's terms, it's the art of persuasion. So as salespeople, we have to persuade our customer that our solution is the best solution for them, which we're going to cover today. And of course, in doing so, our questions we will be asking the customer should be so much so where we're not giving the customer the chance to say no. So lots of mini closes along the way, lots of mini agreements, but no close questions. We're going to cover these in today's session. This is the classic sales funnel, and in a kitchen showroom or a bathroom showroom, the first thing that we need to do when a customer comes in is to grab their attention. We want to grab their attention and get them thinking that we have a solution for them that's different from your competitor. So showstoppers are very, very important. So you might have something in your showroom that perhaps doesn't sell in a great abundance. It might be an obscure color, but stops and it causes a talking conversation to occur. But the best showstopper is to show a customer a practical solution that meets the frustration in their current kitchen. So, for example, you could show a customer a corner solution where they may never have seen that before elsewhere, and basically they can go down, you can demonstrate, there's that word again, demonstrate, how that corner storage solution will save them bending the back, going into the back of the cupboard, that's sometimes quite difficult, particularly for the older generation. Now, we know what a corner storage solution looks like, but they may not have seen that anywhere else. So here you're going to get their attention. They're going to get their attention. They're going to say, that solution there could be good for me. And I'm going to show you guys shortly a real live example of this. So you're capturing their interest. You're having a conversation about their current kitchen, and now they're going to be more convinced this solution could be right for them, and so forth. The desire goes up. And then we'll look at those closing questions on how we then take that to the next stage. Okay, so here is a little look into Simon Akers' kitchen. So I moved to a house, and the picture with the dark cobalt grey kitchen on the base units is a framed kitchen unit, which is very European, but also very American actually. And this particular designer who designed this kitchen put a 270mm door on this corner cabinet. Well, anyone can work out that's going to be so difficult for me to get my kitchen produce out of that cupboard, where in actual fact the 450mm cupboard on the left hand side would have made a better corner door solution. So my frustration with my current kitchen is I can't get into that corner. And similarly, if you look above on the wall units, it's the same again. We've got a 300mm with a 270mm door. I can't get in the corner, so I can't get in my cereals, I can't get in my, we call toaster out the corner cupboard. It's very, very difficult. So if I was going into a kitchen showroom and somebody said to me, Simon, can you tell me what are the frustrations with your current kitchen? If more customers got asked that question, more kitchens would be sold. So there's my frustration. So I now know that if you show me the corner solution where I can clearly get access to my produce, I'm going to improve my lifestyle. It's about customer centric in the home lifestyle. I'm going to want to buy a kitchen from you. Okay. So this is very controversial, but in my research and my conversation with retailers, there's three things that I believe you should ask a customer first when they come into their showroom. So the first thing is, where else have you been? Now, by uncovering a previous buying experience or a previous shopping experience, it will help you to sell to your customer or not sell in the way perhaps you've seen before. So you could say, well, tell me, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you've been to see ABC Kitchens. How did you find that experience? And let them speak. And then you will listen to what they're saying, because they'll tell you they went to that kitchen show and actually they found the whole experience quite high pressured, and that almost put them off buying a kitchen. So you could come back and say, well, I understand that, because always repeat back what customers tell you. It shows that you've understood what they're saying, that you found that experience quite high pressure. And what I can tell you here at DEF Kitchen is that we will not give you high pressure. We will give you information, and you can make your own mind up and put the customer at ease. And by the way, quick tip for you, if a customer comes into the showroom and it's a cold initial meeting, it's always a great idea to offer the customer a hot drink or a cold drink. So you could say, I'm having one anyway, would you like a coffee, would you like some juice? And by getting the customer to agree one of those options, you'll spend more time with the customer and increase your relationship at a very, very early point. People do forget. I've been to many showrooms where you walk in and everybody's got their heads down. Nobody makes any eye contact. You can go one stage further. So where else have you been? It's very important to understand that so you can project your presentation in the right way. And we're all busy people, so when do you want the project? When do you want the kitchen? When do you want the bathroom? Is it going to be an immediate thing? Because that sometimes can dictate what product you can select for that customer, or if it's going to be in a few months' time, you then can prioritize your work schedule. It's not uncommon over in the UK for most average designers to be working on probably 10 to 15 plans at any one time. And if you don't know when the customer wants the project, how do you prioritize? Okay. And then budget. Budget is so important to understand. There's so many ways you can ask a customer for budget. You can be direct, which is probably the least favorite way of doing it, because customers never really tell you. You can put on a piece of paper some bandings. You can say $5,000 to $10,000, $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000, and invite the customer to point to a budget. That's quite a smart way. But I think the best way is showing projects you've done before. This one here was $25,000. This one here was $30,000, and gauge their reaction. And that way you'll promote a conversation to understand or uncover what budget they can spend on their project. So sometimes when you are in conversation with your clients, you will get an objection. And in sales, you won't get the order until you get over the objection. So as I said before, if somebody says to you, I don't like gloss kitchens, then you repeat back, it sounds quite alien. I understand, Mrs. Customer, that you don't like gloss kitchens. The customer feels more appeased because they know you're listening to them. So always acknowledge what the customer is saying in terms of objections, and then give your solution. So an objection gives you the opportunity to ask another question. So you don't like gloss kitchens, so can we have a look at this this shaker kitchen or this in-frame kitchen? Which one do you prefer? The alternative close. Okay. I think we'd all agree in sales the most common objection is price. So with your presentation, if you are hitting a budget which is a little bit north of their disclosed amount they want to spend, you need to start thinking about how can you overcome that price budget, which we're going to have a look at. But it's very important to make sure you're planning the kitchen with the customer, so that when you get to the very, very end, they can't say no, and the price can become less important, and you've definitely relayed your service benefits. Why are you different? So if you don't know, what are the 5 reasons why a customer should buy from you? So as a team in your business, if you can all get together and say, what are our 5 unique differences? Now, by saying you've got great customer service is not a unique benefit. The unique benefit might be that you employ all your installers on the books. They're part of your salaried team, where potentially the guy down the road has subcontractors. Okay, so get those things done first. So here's a few ideas, guys. So we call these natural closes. Okay, so I went to see a customer, a quick story for you, and he said to me, Simon, I'm in a busy department store, I'm a concession, so I'm in plant within a department store, and my conversion rate is 3 out of 10. I've got problems. There's a lot of cost attached to preparing a quotation for a customer. So he was receiving heavy traffic of customers coming through saying, I wonder what that kitchen would cost in my house. Can you do me a plan? And of course, they go out to the customer's house, they take the measurements, come back, they design the kitchen, invite the customer back in, they'd sit down and present the kitchen. And the customer would say, well, I don't like that, I don't want that there, and can you move that to over there? And at this point, the consumer, the customer, has had no input into the plan. So I said to him, why don't you arrange with the customer to come and sit down for a 2-hour consultation and plan the kitchen together? If you work on the design together, you can get over every minute objection as you go along. But the most important thing, guys, here in that 2-hour consultation is you become so friendly with that customer, it's even more difficult to say no. So design with the customer, and that will increase your conversion rate. By the way, the guy went up to 8, 9 out of 10. It was an amazing transformation for the guy's business. It made all the difference. So this is important too. So you'll all have your preferred or your better installers. I know that we have a problem here in the UK where you can't get enough good installers. I understand it's very similar in the North American market. So if you have got a good fitter or a good installer, every customer would like your best fitter. So you can use that in your conversation and say, look, here's the fitting diary. I'd like you to have our best fitter. He's called John. If you agree to go ahead with me today, I can book that slot for you. Everybody wants the best fitter. Another little tip. Okay. And sometimes when we're talking about prices, the manufacturers or the distributors that supply you products, they may have some special promotions with some promotion end dates. So you can say, the quotation I prepared for you today is $15,000. However, I can hold that price for you only until the end of the month, because what I've done, I've included a 20% manufacturer promotion. And when that promotion finishes at the end of the month, the price will have to change. It's not me, it's not our business, it's our manufacturer, our supplier. And by giving that customer a fear close that they're going to miss out and have to potentially pay more money, that will help with your conversion rate. Here's a great one. So within your brand of kitchens that you sell, or your brand of bathrooms, think about things that are unusual. So it could be a different size unit, it could be a design specification that you know is not mass market. If it's not mass market and you plan that in and get the customer to agree, there's a bigger chance they'll buy that project from you. So customer comes in the showroom and they say, actually, I think I'd like a gloss white door, or I'd like a dark wood shaker kitchen in my home. And we all know those kind of doors are available absolutely everywhere. So you'll do your quotation for $20,000, and it's a good chance I'll go to a competitor who can offer exactly the same. So think about, what do you have in your armory? What do you have in your product portfolio that you think is different from your competitors, as long as it's commercial, that you can persuade? Remember, I said right at the very, very beginning that sales is the art of persuasion, to buy for their home. And by presenting that to the customer, when they think about getting a second or a third quotation, they may not be able to, and therefore you're increasing your chance of selling to the customer. If you were to sell a gloss white slab door, you've got less chance, because you could be literally beating on just price if the customer hasn't fully understood your service benefits. So think about unusual, unique door styles. And then, of course, we mentioned before about service benefits. So a lot of people fail to understand the 5 reasons why their company or their brand is different. It could be that you've been established for 30 years, you've been trading for 30 years. Shout about it. 30 years is a real confidence boost for a customer. If you're not telling people, or you think they just know anyway, you need to be doing that, because someone who just opened up in a corner shop 2 or 3 months ago, you know, they'll have their own ideas, but you're much stronger. But tell your customer what that is. So again, if you don't know what your 5 USPs are, get around the table and agree it. Everybody should communicate the same message. Here's a few smart tips for you. So always be thinking in sales, when you're talking to customers, your primary and your secondary objective. So your primary objective is to get a date in the diary to go to the customer's house to measure up for the bathroom or the kitchen. If you fail to do that, your secondary objective could be to invite the customer back in to show them a new brochure or a new display, and to retry again a second time, but agree that very important next stage. People who think primary and secondary are more successful salespeople. Remember to ask about your frustrations. So you can say to the customer, tell me about your buying habits. Where have you been? What's your experience been so far? How can I improve that experience for you? And here's a great one. So if you ask yourself, what do fish do in the ocean? Well, fish shoal and they have safety in numbers. So it's the same with a customer. So if you think about it, as a guy, I can give you a great story here to explain this, where he had this range cooker. It's like a big, I guess, industrial size cooker we call in the UK. And the customer would come into the showroom and he would say, everyone that comes into my showroom loves this cooker. And when they want this particular size, they always buy this one. Now, whether they do or they don't, the customer listening to the conversation believes that if everybody's buying that cooker, it must be good. And because he knows the guy that owns the business, that he makes the most margin on that cooker, he's quitting and his conversion rate goes up too. So people like safety in numbers. They like to feel like if everybody's doing it, it must be good. So think about that in your presentations. Now, I mentioned demonstration before earlier on. Customer comes in and they can't visualize. They can't visualize even size of the unit. So I saw a guy once in a brilliant action. He went to a customer's house, he took me with him, and he basically took with him a roll of masking tape. We call it sticky tape. So he went to the customer's kitchen and literally he masked out in tape on the floor where the units would go and how big the units would be. And I watched him do this, and I watched the customers' mist lift from their face and thought, I can actually visualize this and I can see how it's going to look in my kitchen. So particularly when you are planning in big island units, you put the masking tape on the floor, the customer can see exactly what that's going to look like, and there's no hidden surprises after the event. So that's not a good idea. So demonstrate, show people materials, show people what you're proposing, and physically do that. So again, when you are questioning customers, you won't always get yeses all the time, but what you need to do is repeat back agreed benefits. So for example, if somebody says to you, I love this corner storage solution, you say, I understand, Mrs. Smith, that you really like that corner solution. It sounds alien, but what that will do, it will intensify in the customer's head the reasons why they should buy that project from you. So sometimes you do get objections you just can't get over. So they might say, for example, I want a bathroom from you with a bath which is 200 centimeters deep. Well, maybe you don't do that. But go back to the reasons that you've already agreed with the customer about your product or your service offering they have agreed to try and get over that. And a good way of saying that with the customers, I understand that's your objection, repeat back the objection. I'll come back to that, and then go back to all the reasons they've already said they want to buy from you instead, and keep doing that. You won't always get over every single objection. Sometimes objections are what we call valid. Okay, so how do we then follow up a customer's quotation when they come in the showroom and you've presented and they want some time to think? Now, sometimes customers do want time to think. Sometimes it's a false objection, and you could say, is there anything we haven't discussed today, we haven't covered, that perhaps we can talk about now, to try and uncover perhaps another objection. But sometimes people want to think. So what we need to do as salespeople is to agree in advance who's doing what when, who's making the phone call, and please, guys, ensure that it's you making the call. Never let them say they're going to call you, because they never will. So you'll agree. What I'll do for you, Mrs. Smith, I will give you a courtesy call. Would you prefer next Tuesday or next Wednesday? How about 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock? You're giving people alternatives all the time, but salespeople in control are more successful. So this is quite interesting. So in today's world, people like to send emails, to send text messages, because generally it's easier. But let me tell you guys, if you send an email to a customer asking for an order, it's so easy for them to say no. But if you pick the phone up and have a conversation with the customer, you can then get over objections on the telephone while you're talking to the customer, which you wouldn't get the chance to do if you send an email. So many sales have been lost because the salesperson's lost control of that process. Courtesy call is a great word I've just said. So when you are calling people, if you are saying you're having a courtesy call, it's not an aggressive or a sales call or a pest call. And customers like that word courtesy call. I'm just ringing to find out how you're getting on with the decision-making process. That's the way to do it. And of course, in sales, smile, because even on the telephone you can smile and people can feel that down the phone. So if you're bright and you're cheerful, enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm. So always when you're talking to people, be excited about what you've got to offer, because by being excited makes the customer feel more excited and they want to deal with bright, cheery and happy people. Always invite the customer back as many times as you can to the show. It's a good idea to get the couple to come in together, so you minimize the experience where they say, well, actually my partner's not here today, so I can't make that all important decision. So remember, when you are talking to customers, that always offer alternative close questions. So remember, no closed questions. So don't say to a customer, if you haven't got your relationship right, should we go ahead with that? In the first instance, say, well, no, I haven't thought about this, this, and this, or we haven't discussed it properly. You can always be assumptive once your relationship is right and you know you've ticked all the boxes and got over the objections. We said before, use promotion end dates, and of course in this marketplace, some prices are rising. So again, it's not you that's imposing those price changes. So what I would advise you to do is to explain to customers there are some pending price changes and we would like you to go ahead today because I'd like to save you some money. I'd like to save you some money, okay? It's a great thing to tell a customer. And always agree the next stage, even if you're having a phone conversation with a customer. Before that phone goes down, what are you going to do on that customer's project? What's the next stage agreement? So many people put the phone down and think, now, who's doing what next? Who was making that call? What was the next stage? When were they coming in? Was I delivering a sample door to the customer's house? Or were they going to come back in with some plans? What was going to happen? And customers will migrate elsewhere. So always agree who's doing what next, but you keep control. Okay, guys, you're doing well. Here we go. We're going to look at some closing options now. So again, this is technical, but shouldn't be, because really it's we call layman's terms. It's the basics, but so many people forget the basics. And here's a few ideas that you could consider and perhaps you can practice for the future. So we're going to go through them here. So I'll put them on the screen for you first to have a look at. There's a few unusual ones there, which we'll cover off. So number one, the alternative close we just spoke about. Would you like solid surface worktop or would you like laminate? Easy. Assumptive close, sure of your relationship. Drop close is all about price, and we'll come back on to how we can negate that shortly. For and against close. Now, I haven't said this yet, but actually, when the customer comes in, if you ask the customer what their profession or their job is, it will help you to sell a kitchen or a bathroom to them, because accountants, they like all the information, all the detail. If they're a teacher, they'll want to organise you, they'll give you a job list. And if they're a financial director, they'll want to know your last 2 or 3 home addresses and your blood group, and then they'll go ahead with the order. So understanding your customer is so important. And you can see that I'm a kitchen designer. Can I ask what you do for a living? Watch how that helps you to sell. Puppy dog close, number 5, is a very, very clever one. And again, it comes back to demonstration. We're demonstrating what we have to offer. We're going to talk about that in more detail. Silent close, I struggle with the silent close. Silent close is using silence to your benefit to make the customer feel slightly uncomfortable when they go ahead. And then the fear close, we mentioned a couple of times here today about a customer losing out. They don't want to lose out before they've made that all-important purchase decision. So we'll cover these off in each slide coming up now. So alternative close. So yes, the most effective close, okay? Many what we call garden path closes. You're taking your customer up the garden path to the point of saying, yes, I want to go ahead with you. So we can deliver the kitchen the first week of February, or how about the last week of January? Now, any textbook sales person will tell you that by putting the last option on that list as the option that you want, it's more likely the customer will select that. So you could say, would you like a cookie or would you like a chocolate cookie? And most people will take the chocolate cookie. Now, you know the chocolate cookie may cost more money and you'll make more profit. But in this case, or this example, we would like to invoice the kitchen earlier, the last week of January, rather than putting this project into February, because it suits us. So you say first week of February or the last week of January, and try and get the customer to agree to the last option. Try it and see whether it works for you. Assumptive close is assuming control. Again, you need to be sure of your relationship. You need to check off all the objections, and then you can assume the position. So you could say, I will speak to John the installer, because he's your best installer or your fitter, and we'll book you in for week 1 in January, because you already said you want John to do the project. and then you get your booking diary out and you start making notes, and the customer will just go along with you if your relationship is right at that point. That's the assumptive close. Okay, so price is always key. The drop close. Now here's a great one, guys, to think about. So in business or in sales, if you're going to reduce something or discount something, what are you going to get back in return? It's a really big thing. Don't just, drop everything you're doing because the customer's asking you to do that without getting a concession. So an example of that could be that you are going to give a discount. In this particular case here, we're saying on this slide that we'll get a 5% discount for you. And can we proceed? But what you should also be saying is, I can get you that 5% discount, but if we can get that kitchen into the last week of January's fit schedule, I can give you 5%, because it's good for you, it's good for John the fitter, and it's good for the customer. So everybody's winning on that situation. So again, don't give discounts without asking for concessions that help your business. It's always key. For and against close, this is a balanced close, looking like a pros and a cons list. And normally when you ask the question about profession, if they are a accountant, a solicitor, a lawyer, they're into the detail. The detail is really key for them. So there we go. We've agreed our service benefits outweigh the competition. Let me explain in more detail about the promotional savings. I'm an accountant. I want to know all the detail, and then I'll give you the order. Okay, so here's my favorite one, guys. This is called the puppy dog close. So if you have a bathroom showroom or you have a kitchen showroom and you have sample material, think about getting a second set of your favorite kitchen doors or a second set of swatches, because what we should be doing is inviting the customer to take home sample material. By taking home sample material, they're almost taking ownership of the project before they've even bought from you. So here's a great example. So you're going to say to the customer, take home these sample doors. I'm convinced you will choose from these. But if they're not right, next stage agreement, I'll pop over next Tuesday and then I'll replace them with alternatives. So if you take the puppy dog home with you, it's unlikely you want to give it back entirely. You may change it for a different color puppy, but you want to keep ownership, and that's the puppy dog close. Again, demonstration, very, very important, but be there to help your customer. So here's the very important silent close. So when we are presenting to a customer and you get to the point where you know the price and you're going to tell the customer the price, and you can say, I'm very pleased to confirm that the project will come in at $14,500, which is just below your budget, and then go quiet. And when you go quiet, it can be an awkward situation. Sometimes if you then maintain your silence, the customer will then speak because they feel awkward, and they will then reveal whether they're happy to go ahead or indeed a further objection. So here's an example coming up. So you've agreed the price is within budget, and you've agreed the design looks good. Tick, tick. Okay, go quiet. And when you go quiet, try doing this. The longer the silence, the more awkward the customer will feel, and the more likely they are to tell you what they really want to do. Try it, guys. And then the fear close. So this is the one that you would use at the very, very end of every close that you'll be talking about. And here, of course, in the picture, in the 1970s, when I was a child, these things are really scary. So that's a great picture for the fear close. I don't know whether you guys had Dalek in North America, but certainly over here, it's a big BBC One TV series, even today. So I'm scared of those Daleks. The customers are scared of losing out. So here we go, guys. So you need to order before the manufacturer's price changes or before your own offer changes, because I don't want to lose money. I want the very, very best quality, but I want the very, very best price. I don't want to lose out, but make sure you're creative in what you explain to customers that makes that all important difference. Okay, so big thing, guys, when you have the order, it's very important to actually stay quiet, because sometimes someone will give you a deposit for a bathroom, a deposit for a kitchen, and then the salesperson keeps talking, and they may reveal something the customer hasn't understood. And how many times that happened to you? And what tends to happen, sometimes the customer could say, oh, I didn't really appreciate that, and start backpedaling. So once you've got the order, thank the customer, go quiet and move on to your next project, because so many salespeople have experienced that fact. So old-fashioned here. So when you do get the order, it's very important to think about how are you or your business going to say thank you to the customer. Now, this is very old-fashioned because nowadays people send emails, but if you went out to a store and brought a pack of 10 cards, old-fashioned I know, and hand wrote, "Dear Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Smith, I'm very, very pleased to say to you, thank you for giving me your order." And when the customer receives that in the post, on the mail, that's going to be very good for your recommendation. They said, what a great guy that Simon was. I went to see him. He designed me a great kitchen. The price is amazing. Do you know what he did? He sent me a thank you card. Nobody else ever does that. And if that customer tells 10 people, you've got more chance of getting more recommendations, because you as an individual, your local area are important. Your personal brand is important to how many kitchens or bathrooms you're going to sell in the future. So that's a good one you can try. So if you're unsuccessful, and so many good salespeople are scared of being unsuccessful, but if you're unsuccessful, it gives you an opportunity to be better the next time, and everyone can learn from their experiences. So here's a few tips. So in this case, the customer's saying, I've decided not to change my kitchen until the spring, okay? You may say, I understand that, because you're repeating back that you've understood what the customer's saying. However, let's arrange a visit and start planning some ideas now, okay? You're not letting the customer go, because sometimes, as we all know, projects aren't 24 hours. They can be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months sometimes, yeah? Depending how big the project is. So keep the next stage going, and that's really, really important. So always, when someone says they don't want to buy from you, which is a hard thing to hear sometimes, always agree to leave the door wide open, because they may want to go somewhere else, but actually it may not go as planned. And by putting a courtesy call in at a later stage, even when they've told you they're not going to go with you, might uncover another buying opportunity. So you're going to say to the customer, I would like to tell you I've got a brilliant new display being fitted by a manufacturer actually in a couple of weeks' time. So I wouldn't want you to miss out on seeing this display, because I think you're going to like what we're putting in the showroom. So I understand you're not going to buy today and you want to go somewhere else, but please do pop back in and I'll be pleased to show you what we're putting in the showroom. And what you're doing, you're creating some doubt in the customer's mind, or some curiosity to come back and see you for a further conversation. Then, of course, you can reevaluate the way you came across with the customer. Were you too direct? Were you too soft? Do you let the customer organise you? And you can reevaluate how you're going to then talk to the customer to get the customer to agree to your project. So top 10 summary, guys, is really simple. We've covered most things in the presentation here. But before we go on to the summary, another little quick tip for you. So I met a guy in a place called Leicester, and he said, Simon, I'm going to tell you how I sell kitchens. And I said, well, what do you do that's different? He said, very simple. My showroom assistant books me an appointment to go to the customer's house. At that point, I've had no conversation with the customer. So what I would do is, on the day, I ring the customer to confirm where they live and how I'm going to park outside the property. But what I say to the customer is, I'm going to come and see you tonight to design the kitchen for you, but can I just ask you if I can meet your objections, if I can get you the price, if I can give you a design that you like, can we move forward, and can we have a deal? Can we have a sale? And he would get the customer to confirm on the telephone that should all the boxes be ticked, that customer would buy from that individual. And that individual was very, very, very successful at selling kitchens, because when the customer, well, actually, I don't want to go ahead with it, politely, he did say, look, we did make an agreement. You could try that. A second little tip for you before we finish on the summary, when you have presented the kitchen design to the customer, you can also think about how you present price more creatively. I met a great guy who was very successful at holding his price and gauging the customer's reaction. So what he would do, the customer would come into the showroom and he would say, sit there, and we'll go through what you've decided you wanted in the kitchen that we've worked on the project together with. And I've got the price there for you. So what were you expecting to pay for your new kitchen? And he went quiet. And the customer would say, well, you know, I was hoping that we could get it around about budget. And he would say, great, whatever was on his piece of paper was whatever the customer said. And that's how he converted more orders, because he kept control of price. Rather than just saying that's the price, he said, what were you expecting to pay for your kitchen or your bathroom? Very, very, very clever, very powerful. Another tip perhaps you could consider using. We're going to look at how we get further content shortly, guys, because these tips I'm talking to you about here, we have so many more tips we can relay to you on 2020 Spaces, but we'll come back onto that shortly, because I believe that by sharing knowledge, everybody can become more successful. So here's your top 10 summary. Prepare knowledge. So if a sales manufacturer's representative comes in to see you, in some cases, most showrooms will say, do you know what I mean? I'm too busy, can you go away? But the clever ones that book an appointment and you will see them to relay their knowledge to you will make you more successful. The minute that a customer doesn't understand that you understand, then you are sometimes dead in the water, because they lose the confidence with you. So the more you can find out about what you're selling, how to work your ovens and how to work your appliances, the better you will be. Okay, so think, we said before, primary and secondary objectives. So what are you going to go for? What's your primary objective, your target? If you don't get that, what you're going to settle for is your secondary, but you keep the control. So best salespeople, we said, would always ask plenty of questions first before they pitch their solutions. So think about people around you, coach people, think about what you do. The more questions you ask, the more kitchens and bathrooms you will sell. Always be closing is the garden path close. So always be getting mini agreements across that project. And we said before, the guy in the department store who basically had the customers coming in who didn't really understand what they wanted and wasted so much time, but the minute they came in for a 2-hour consultation, they sat down together, he had the chance to ask lots and lots of questions and get lots of agreements, and it was too difficult then to say no, because it's exactly what the customer wants. So always be closing. Again, we've mentioned so many times before, salespeople in control are in control, and they're more successful than their competitors. So always agree who's doing what next. Okay, discounts, though, we get to that trap sometimes, but make sure that if you are giving a discount, you're getting something back for it. In the example we used earlier, we're putting the customer's project where you want to install it. Natural closes, think about things you can do that are other than reducing price, which we said before. It could be different price groups as well. So if the customer says my budget is $15,000 and you quoted it in a timber product and they can't afford it, rather than discounting the kitchen, offer the customer a vinyl or a PVC option that looks almost similar but can meet their budget but maintains the all-important margin that you need to make as a business. Okay, so once you've agreed with the customer, go quiet, move on, thank the customer for their order and move on to the next project. Okay, again, we said old-fashioned, but always say, I just wanted to say thank you for the order, and the clever people go a stage further and they send the customer a nice thank you card, which helps with your recommendations or your referrals. So I hope what you've seen today will give you a few things for thinking on in terms of your thought process on your process of presenting a customer. And I would always urge people now to try and practice different closing techniques, because by practicing all the different options we looked at today, for example, the silent close is a good one, try it. And if you convert just one extra project in a month, think about how that would look for you across the whole of the year on your profitability as a business or as an individual. So guys, thank you for listening. I've now put a QR code up on the screen, so I'm going to invite you to take a picture of that QR code, which will come back into our centre and collect information if you would like to be kept up to date with new training content. Of course, we have some different modules on 2020spaces.com, so have a look at those too. If you've enjoyed what you've seen today, we'd like to now invite, I think, some questions from anybody from the audience. If there are no questions, absolutely fine, but if there's questions, we're happy to answer them for you. No? Great. Well, again, guys, thank you for listening. I hope you picked out 5 things that can make a difference, and have a great day.